Welcome back to a brand new edition of Pod by the BAE, brought to you by HomefieldApparel.com. Use our code BAE25 for 15% off your first order at HomefieldApparel.com, or if you've already made your orders there, like I have, if it's a little home field here, you can use the affiliate link in the description. Helps us, helps you, and get some of that nice new Homefield merch at HomefieldApparel.com. Christmas shopping season's coming up. Makes a great gift at a variety of schools. Or you can just get their plain stuff. Very comfortable. HomefieldApparel.com, code BAE25 for 15% off your first order, or use our affiliate link in the description. Gentlemen, I'm Seth Varnadore, joined by Collin Sherwin and Robert Steeg. Tough loss for USF. We haven't had one of those in a while. The Miami game was somewhat expected. Memphis, it was an odd game. You kind of dominated the game for three quarters and then had about as poor of a fourth quarter as you could ask for statistically. I think they gave up 221 yards in the fourth quarter. It was a weird one. Collin, you were there. What was it like? Was it a roller coaster there inside the beautiful Memphis stadium there?
So we were in a press box that was about 6 miles from the field. So I would say it was tough to judge. Like, one of the things that I heard from people that were actually in the stands was like, oh, there aren't a lot of USF fans here. And so the side that we were on, I don't know if you guys could see it on TV, but the opposite side, they're redoing the entire Liberty Bowl. And there's this massive complex going up on the far side of the field, which would have been behind where the Memphis bench was. And they're building some sort of very, very nice 9-figure project over there. So the stadium only holds about 30,000 right now, which is way, way, way down from what it once was. But I heard a USF fan saying, oh, we didn't see a lot of USF fans there. And I'm like, yeah, because you're all sitting on the same side of the stadium and you're mixed in pretty well with the rest of the fans. So I don't know how many USF fans were there. It was really hard for us to judge just from where we were located. There were a couple calls and a couple things that happened during the game. Like, for example, I asked Golesh after this game, after he came off the field and was waving at the fans in the Memphis bench about it. We saw that like on replay. We didn't actually see it from where we were because we were so far away. It was a tough spot to watch a game. Very nice facility. People were great. Fans were great. People were very enthusiastic about the game, which I thought was good. Not great attendance, quite frankly. I thought, there's a game Memphis should sell out. I don't care if it's 11 a.m. on a Saturday after a loss as a 23-point favorite. This is a game you got to sell out. And but the people that were there were enthusiastic, and it made for a good atmosphere, and it was fun. Fourth quarter, 221 to 89 in terms of yardage. Memphis ran 26 plays in the fourth quarter. USF ran 20 plays. It doesn't sound too bad, but the thing is that USF threw on 12 of them, ran it on 8 of them. And I think that came back to bite them. They just weren't able to put the game away on the ground and spin the clock that they needed to. With a 2-score lead entering the fourth quarter, that's one you should probably get out with 100% of the time, or if not 100% of the time, a great majority of the time. And to not even lose in overtime, but to lose in regulation. Their defense they were on the field too much. And I think there were some points where USF probably could have done a better job of giving their defense a bit of a blow. Memphis definitely played better in the third quarter as well offensively. And I think USF probably could have done a better job of controlling, a little bit more game control there. A lot of people are blaming not kicking the field goal. I like the aggression there. I like the decision. And actually, since Memphis missed their field goal coming back, that didn't really hurt. You know what I mean? That's much more outcome based than process based. But people pointing to that, the outcome of that was, they didn't get it, but Memphis was still pinned. They had to drive the field. They did drive it about 60 yards there, 60, 65 yards there, but then they missed the kick. It comes down to the little things sometimes. The hold on the last play before the field goal, absolute killer, bad snap. Tiny things like that just seemed like, USF did win a big game on a field goal this year in Gainesville on the last play of the game, and then this one they just weren't able to get it done from a much further away. I don't think you can blame Nico. That snap was pretty bad. Looked like his original kick of the ball went pretty straight, and then, just the push that he got originally, and then it just drifted left on him. So definitely some things to worry about. But I think everybody's saying that, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Look, you win the American, you're going to the playoff. I mean, that's just the way it is. You could maybe make a small argument for like a 13-0 UNLV, but on schedule, it will not be close in terms of, you know what I mean? That conference this year is just not anywhere near good enough. And so all USF has to do is win the conference. Well, there are a hell of a lot more scenarios where USF ends up, if they win their last 4 games, in the conference championship game than there are not. If Tulane goes in and beats Memphis on what I believe is a Friday night game in 2 weeks, I want to say, Tulane goes in there and wins that game, USF controls their own destiny again. There's 900 other scenarios where USF will control their own destiny. So, if this is another unlucky season like 2017 was, where they just lost the one game to the wrong team at the wrong time, and they end up 7-1 in the league, and then they don't get to the conference championship game, well, that's going to be just bad luck again. But that seems a much more unlikely scenario than a likely one. So control what you have to do, win your last 4. You'll be favored in at least 3 of them. And then Navy game, I think, will be really close. I'd make that a pick 'em. I'd make that maybe USF a slight favorite there in those 3, and they'll be favored in the others for sure. So handle your serve, do your job, go play for a conference championship. It's just you won't be at home anymore. That's the one thing, is that it makes it much more difficult to host a conference championship game.
Yeah. So fourth down decision is one I think that's been much debated, right? The decision not to kick a field goal. I think part of the calculus was your defense had been playing pretty well up to that point. So you feel like if I get stopped here, they get the ball on inside the 10-yard line, we stop them, we'll get the ball back in good field position. Unfortunately, on that drive, they, like you said, they moved down. They ended up missing the field goal, but the field position battle flips. I think after that, though, it kind of gets wiped clean a little bit, right? The touchdown was right after that missed field goal drive, correct? So the long
Correct.
touchdown. So kind of the slate gets wiped clean. You're up 17 at that point. And so that decision, well, it would have been nice to have the 3 extra points, obviously, at the end of the game. Would have been good. But it's hard to go back when, you're up 17 after that decision. That's not the reason you lost the game, right? So,
they would have been up. That would have put them up 14, and then the ensuing
they scored 7. That's right. You're up 14, then they score 17 to take a 3-point lead. So
yeah,
it would have been
so
up.
they would have been up 14. But then what happened is they missed the field goal, and then Sam Franklin on the play of the game, which is going to get lost in all this, which was an amazing, inside run, and Franklin just busts it. On the last, I think there was 2 seconds left in the quarter of the third quarter afterwards. So now you're up 14, and in a fantastic situation going forward, and just unable to stall the game the way the one thing you don't want to do is give Memphis 3 possessions in regulation at that point.
Do you think this game was a little fluky?
A little bit. USF is definitely the better. If you play this game 100 times, USF wins 85% of them. Yeah,
because you go back and look through. I think obviously Memphis finished and scored 17 points. We just talked about the fourth quarter, 220 yards, 17 points in the fourth quarter. Obviously an unbelievable finish. But you kind of look at the stats for the whole game. USF outgains them by 114 yards. The first downs are about even. USF almost averages 7 yards a play to Memphis's 5.7 yards per play. Memphis fumbles 3 times but doesn't lose any. USF turns the ball over once. Memphis gets a touchdown off of it. Going into it felt like, and we were kind of talking in the Discord through the game, especially early, it felt like the Memphis offense was all besides that first touchdown off the turnover, it was all penalties and slop. Like it wasn't anything in rhythm. Like it was the quarterback scrambling out, making a play. And they had at one point negative EPA on offense, negative EPA on or not poor EPA on defense, and they had like 5 EPA from penalties at one point because they had one drive. I think they got 30 yards in penalties to kind of get into scoring range. So that was kind of up through the end of the quarter. So I think you see why Golesh might have thought, okay, if we can go score a touchdown here, that's a knockout blow. The game's over.
I mean,
he had him dead.
But
and it turned out even later, after Franklin scores, it's as outcome, it's not process, but it's outcome. As outcome, it's the same result.
Right.
You know what I mean? Except you've killed another 4 minutes off the clock, which is in your favor. So yeah, I get going for it there. I like, especially the way the defense was playing. But what I dislike is that, you look at the plays in the fourth quarter. Okay, so USF gets the ball after DeRosier scores. Keeper Byron Brown, gain of 5 yards. They run a play 18 seconds later. Davenport, 5 yards, first down. They run a play 17 seconds later. Byram, complete to Koger, 15 yards, first down. This is a spot where you can spin the clock a little bit. Keep your defense off the field. Give them a little more rest, especially in a situation where they faced 26 plays in the fourth quarter defensively. This is a spot where you can spin the clock a little bit.
You saw something similar happen, and you kind of saw people talk about it over the weekend. Something similar happened in Mississippi State, who is also of the same offensive tree, up big. I think they were up 17 on Texas, right, and ended up losing the game in overtime.
It's be who you are. Like, be who you are. And I'm not asking them to not be who they are. And in fact, I asked Golesh about that after the game because, on the last drive, 4 passes, first down. Excuse me. There were 6 first downs in the fourth quarter. We threw the ball on first down 4 times. So I'm not asking them to not be who they are. I'm fine with that because, they're looking at the box. They're looking at where the safeties are located, and they're it's a packaged play. If the safeties are walked down, we're going to throw the ball. If the safeties are back, we're gonna try and take advantage and run the ball. Again, very generally, I mean, it's much more complicated than that, obviously, but that's basically the gist of what football is with these in modern offense. And so I'm fine with that. But maybe. I understand the hyper tempo and trying to keep the defense off balance, but at that point, maybe you can just spin the play clock a little bit more. Maybe you can keep your defense off field a little bit more. Maybe you can control the clock a little bit more in that spot. Again, this is the first time that Golesh has really been caught with his hyper aggression. I think, through 30 some games of his head coaching career, I think the aggression has been really, really good. And in the long run, but this just happened to be the exact wrong place at the exact wrong time to have it catch up to you. The other side of it is Brendan Lewis just started making plays. We can talk about all of this and how USF made mistakes and, strategically, whatever, So I thought Byron played very well on the whole, but Brendan Lewis was better quarterback in the field. And just especially in the second half, he just was able to get outside, especially for a guy that we thought was dinged and hurt, was just able to make plays, was throwing behind the blitz, was, rolling to his right and being able to do it with both his legs and his arm. And I thought he just played really, really well. And sometimes you got to tip your cap a little bit. I think, especially against a defense that had been on the field a lot, I think he did a really nice job. So,
I think he was hurt because you did not see him move laterally very much and very well, but he was able to move straight lines, which is consistent, I think, with an ankle injury, where you can't really cut on it, but you can sometimes run straight ahead fine. It'll be painful, but it doesn't hurt you too bad. He ended up playing really well, especially in that fourth quarter. The other decision I think that some people are questioning is, and in the moment, it made sense to me, taking a shot at the end zone with what was like 10 seconds left, your ball in the 25, you take a shot to the end zone, get a holding call, now it pushes it back. Yes. What do you think about that decision?
I like the aggression. I don't think you can factor in the hold. Like you got to go for it. You know what I mean? And
you have to call plays as if your guys are going to execute them.
Correct. The biggest mistake I saw on the last drive was not the play calling. I think it was using the second timeout instead of clocking the ball with 32 seconds left. So what happened was they ran up, the clock stopped at 32 after the first down, and they were sort of caught in no man's land trying to get lined up. But they were pretty close to lined up at that point. And then with 29 on the clock, they called the timeout.
Well, it looked like they went and got lined up, and it looked like Byron was at line of scrimmage looking for the play instead of looking for a clock signal. And I think
And
they
just
saw that, and he wasn't, so they burned the timeout.
so you have to keep your field goal time.
Kind of know I got to have, you got to keep one for the field goal. But I think that's when you got to know, hey, if we get the first here, we're going to clock it, save the timeout.
Yes, I think that was a huge mistake. That is a clock play right there. So what happens is because if you have that extra timeout, it allows you to open up the run game a little bit more later in the down, because you can still run the ball technically, even if you run it up an A gap. You can, okay, well, we ran an A gap, it didn't work, that's fine. We still have a timeout here to stop the clock and continue the drive.
And you can
it
see
just
that
opens up so much more of your offense. Yeah.
In that last play where you get the hold, Memphis brings pressure up the middle because they know you're not going to throw the ball over the middle.
Correct. Right.
So
and
it kind of limits your options even in the throw game. And that's where you get the hold with late pressure, where the center's got to reach back and try to get a piece. So, I think this is a new spot for Golesh, because he's always been hyper aggressive, and like you said, he hasn't really been burned for it, but he's always been the underdog being hyper aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
He's never he's not really been a favorite in one of these big games. So it'll be interesting. This is kind of a good experience for him, as much as it hurts to lose a game like this. Maybe you got to tweak things, or maybe you just got to execute it better. But that's kind of it's kind of his first shot as in one of these big games, being the underdog. Where, all right, it's great when you're the underdog and you just keep throwing punches. That's awesome. But when you're the favorite, you're up by 2 touchdowns. Maybe the calculus changes a little bit.
Exactly. And I think they'll learn from this. Believe me, look, man, I watch a lot of college football. As you know, I wager on a great deal of it. Jacksonville State up 7-6 right now, coming in halftime. But I see so much poor coaching and execution and decisions week after week after week. We are picking a nit here at a guy who I think has been overwhelmingly fantastic as both a game, as a head coach in general, as a leader in general, but also specifically as a game manager, as a sport tactician. I think has been tremendous. This is the first time he got caught. It's the timing stinks on it, but the beauty of it is that because of how they've played at North Texas and other games this season, that this is not a death knell. You can survive the blip.
Right.
Can't survive the second blip now. The insurance policy got left on the field of the Liberty Bowl, and that's the problem, is that it is. You got to win out. There's no path at 6-2. I mean, there technically is, but it's not happening. So now
let's talk going forward here. I'll throw up the standings. This is where it sits right now.
Everybody's going to panic and see Navy at 5-0. You want to tell them who Navy's last 3 games are against?
Yes, Navy, the Naval Academy. They play North Texas this weekend, who I think it's probably not a great matchup for them. Their defense doesn't seem to be great. Then they go on the road. After going on the road to North Texas, they go on the road to Notre Dame. I don't know. Is that a neutral site, or is that actually at Notre Dame?
I'm not sure.
I know they've done a neutral a little bit. I don't know if they just do that for the Academy home game portion of it. And then USF at home, off week at Memphis on a Thursday. So they still have 3 of those top 5 right there, not including themselves, 3 of the other 4 to play. So that'll sort itself out. Memphis still has to play Navy, aforementioned Navy, Tulane after playing. So they play at Rice this Friday. Then they play Tulane on a Friday. Then they play at ECU, which ECU is kind of a frisky team.
House of Horrors for a lot of people, for sure.
And then off week before they get Navy on a Thursday. So I think the Tulane-Memphis game is a big pivot point, right?
Yeah. If Tulane wins, USF controls their own destiny. That's basically what it comes down to. And if Tulane, I would make Tulane a favorite in that game, especially if Lewis continues to be. I mean, I think he looked pretty healthy against us, But either way, Tulane's going to be favored in that game. And if Tulane just holds, USF doesn't have to worry about anything else. Just win out. You win out, you'll play at Tulane, most likely at Tulane. But even if it's not at Tulane, if somehow they melted down the stretch, you would control your own destiny. So do that. There are much more paths for USF to make it than not make it. I remember in 2017 when we lost to Temple in one of the just, that you look at that Temple loss on the road and you go, we got out-coached that day. I don't think we got out-coached in this one. We had a running back, Nick Sharga, or a fullback, just absolutely blocked the hell out of us that day, and we really didn't adjust as a defense. And we got beat. That game, USF finished 7-1 in the league that year, and I think we looked it up at the time, and the stat was teams that finish 7-1 make the conference championship game like 78% of the time. I think it was like high 70s. Same thing this year. You know what I mean? In fact, I would say this year they have a better path because there are so many paths. So I would say it's more than 78% that if USF wins out, that they'll be in the conference championship game. Also, if you look at the Vegas odds, Vegas knows what it's doing. Tulane's favorite. We're second.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like
USF at first.
Right. So, and at this point, if you're USF, you just want to play, get yourself there. We'll deal with Tulane if we got to deal with Tulane. That's fine. We'll play the game, but you just want to get there. And to get there, win out, and I like your chances a lot.
North Texas is an interesting one. USF obviously has the head-to-head tiebreaker over them, but their schedule here on out is they have Navy this week. So if they win that one, they're off, and then they're at UAB, at Rice, and then finish up with Temple at home. Temple will be one to watch because Tulane has to travel to Temple, and I think Casey Keeler's done a pretty good job with that team this year.
I think he's coach of the year.
They're going to be a tough out, I think. So
yeah.
Temple's going to be one that I don't think people really want to play towards the end of the year. So they'll have an off week before they play Tulane, and then they'll be at North Texas to end the season. So they might end up being a little bit of a spoiler in this thing here.
Temple's they're legit. That's a legit football team. I didn't think they would be. I thought Keeler was going to need at least a year or two to get that together, but that team could play. It's that whole Temple tough thing. It's a different offense, that's for sure, but they are playing with passion and they're playing, engaging, exciting football. You got to give Keeler a ton of credit for what he's been able to do with that team early this year. They're light years ahead of where I thought they'd be.
Yeah. USF obviously is off this week. They'll finish with the UTSA at home. UTSA has been somewhat disappointing this year, I would say, or at least based on what preseason projections coming into the season. At Navy, then you have at UAB and Rice to finish a year. At Navy's kind of the game that would give you pause, but again, Navy's defense has not been great this season, so you feel pretty good. You can get into kind of, if you had to, get into a higher scoring game like you did a couple years ago and maybe come out on top there. So
I do worry. I worry about, you're always going to have to worry about Navy. It's not necessarily like the traditional triple that you remember from the past.
It's not your dad's triple option.
It's not your dad's triple.
It's not Army's triple option.
That's for sure. It's a little more dynamic of an offense. And look, I'm not saying it's going to be a cakewalk. I think, Robert Henry's probably the best back in the league by far. At UTSA, that will be an issue. I'm not saying they're going to be cakewalks. I think UAB might be a cakewalk. Honestly, congrats on them for bringing
bounce.
They got their dead cat, and that's probably not going to be great. And then we'll get Rice at home. But the thing about that Rice at home game is that it's very easy to be focused when if we win, we play for a conference championship.
Yes.
So that'll be a little bit easier. I do worry, of the last four, the first two are the ones you probably worry about a little bit more than going to Birmingham or having food for the title.
Navy's currently 126 in EPA defense. UTSA is 125th.
The only thing that's going to keep
really bad on offense.
Yeah, the only thing that's going to keep USF from scoring 50 at Navy is clock control. They might score every possession, like legit. USF. If you could give me a bet of like 3.5 to 1 or better that USF will score in every possession, I'd take it.
Well, there you go. So yeah, I think it's unfortunate you lose a game like that. Obviously, a really good game, and I don't know if you guys saw the one of the person that was working the sideline for ESPN, they kind of caught him on a hot mic after all the stuff after the game. And she said, what a freaking game, and it was just, it was a great game. Unfortunately, you come on the wrong end of it. But I think the thing looking forward is that, like we've kind of laid out, you kind of control your own destiny. If you win out, you're more than likely going to still play for the American Championship.
And if you win the league, you're playing the play. Yeah, and if you win the league, you're in the playoff. Now,
they still have, by a lot of forward-looking metrics, the best chance to make the playoff. And a lot. There's a few that have those forward-looking projections, and USF's made the playoff. Kelly Ford, I think, had it. FPI for I don't know how good FPI is, but I think they have USF has the best chance in the conference to make the playoff. So still a really good chance to make that happen.
Right. And I think that's what's getting lost in all this is that, like, the first part of this is that, yeah, the loss sucks. But as Collin, you mentioned it many times, the insurance policy is now just gone. Like, really not much has changed. And in all sincerity, a loss like that kind of can almost help you sometimes. The whole reason why I picked the Memphis money line for that game was because they had lost against UAB. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I know we have the, Memphis being lemon booty joke, but I don't think Memphis loses twice in a row very often over the last 10 years, regardless of who's coaching them. Like, a well-structured oiled program doesn't lose 2 games in a row like that. And so that's kind of
they should have this week.
Yeah, they should have this week.
Yeah.
But regardless, like, you kind of find a way, right? And so I think that's the part that's getting lost in this is, like, you got to tip your cap at that point. Like, they were down and out. They had a kill shot that literally, like, I was like, Sam Franklin 73-yard touchdown run. They got it. But, like, it's in the grand scheme of things, in like 5 weeks, it's probably not going to matter too much. Theoretically.
Here's the thing. Like, if they had one, if USF had one, cakewalk. They could have cakewalked this thing in.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part.
That's what hurts is that, you're coming off you're going to get your best team. You're the toughest of the last 4, maybe UTSA, maybe Navy or UTSA. Okay, maybe you get them at home. You get them off a bye week after a week where they had to play because they play on Thursday. They play tomorrow night. And then you would have had at Navy. Even if you had dropped that, it would have been fine because you still would have had the inside track because you would have beaten everybody else. And then you would have just had to beat a terrible UAB team and food the last week of the season. And, that's the thing is you punted a really good. You would have been in the high 80s to 90s in terms of chance to make the championship game with a win, maybe well over 90. And you blew that, and that hurts. But handle your business from here on out. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So you still got a good shot. So football, we're getting towards the end of the year. Basketball is ramping up. We've seen a little bit of the men's basketball team. Obviously, there was some big women's basketball team news last week. I don't think we've had a chance to discuss it yet. You guys are pretty close to the situation and have kind of been following the program a lot longer than I have and a lot more in depth than I have. What are your thoughts on, obviously, there's the big coaching news. Kind of what are your thoughts and where's this thing headed?
Collin, this is all you, buddy.
I see. I was going to make sure I left some room for you here, buddy. Yeah, look, I've known Jose over 25 years, and I'm sad to see him go. I'm very happy for him and his family. I do think that the rumors of the death of USF women's basketball are greatly exaggerated because I think Michelle Baxter's just going to keep this thing rolling. Like everybody knows, Michelle's been the brains behind the operation for a long, long time. And she's been there 17 or 18 years already. And she has been, what Chris Daly is to Gina Oriema is what Michelle Baxter's been to Jose Fernandez. And I'm really glad to see her get her shot. She's got talent on this team this year. They're going to win. If anything, you might see some small tweaks here and there in terms of process or whatever, but like South Florida basketball, and she's not going to upend this whole thing, pillar to post. And in fact, she might have a couple of ideas and a couple of things that put her spin on it, having seen, the flaws or the mistakes that have been made in the past, and be able to do even better with it. I'm really excited. I think Michelle, it's unfortunate that I think Michelle has to coach for this job, because I think she'd be a tremendous long-term coach for this program. But the beauty of having a program that has the history of USF women's basketball and the passion and the caring behind it is that you probably, barring like a 35 win season this year or something crazy, or being a top 10, top 15 team, I think this is a job that deserves a national search. It might be Michelle. I hope it's Michelle. I think she's fantastic, but there's going to be a lot of people who want this job. This is a great it's not a good women's basketball job. It is a great women's basketball job. It is probably one of the 20 best jobs in the country in terms of women's basketball. It might be the only major sport where we can say that we are one of the 20 best jobs in the country. Mm-hmm. Jose was making $800,000 a year. That's pretty good. He's got a full budget for NIL. Had a full budget for NIL. That's pretty good. I don't know what the buyout was, but I know, there was a buyout involved from the Wings. That's even more money that's going to be able to go into this program and into this search. There's a lot of great coaches out there with, some of them are on the Jose tree. One of them we might be playing in our first regular season game. I'm just throwing it out there. So, because I think Jess at FIU will certainly be one of the bigger candidates for the job. And she is a former USF women's basketball assistant, and it just, in the irony of all ironies, is they're our opening game this year. I'm super fired up about this team. I think they're going to be great. I'm still going with them to Vegas for the tournament out there, where they're going to play Fairfield and UCLA, and I'm geeked up for that, and they're going to be great. I'm going to miss Jose, but I know Rob will nail this hire, and this is a great job, and it's a great job because of what Jose's been able to do over the last 25 years.
Right.
It's a special program, and it's the one that, if you're a fan of USF athletics generally, this has been the program that's been the biggest point of pride, I think, for us during the 21st century. And I don't think that changes no matter what. But I'm going to miss Jose, and I'm the biggest Dallas Wings fan in the world now. And he's going to get Paige and RK, and he's going to get them a ring too. Yeah.
I mean, my only pause on this, and I was kind of doom and gloom about this. Collin will call me out on it. The reason why I've been very doom and gloom on it was like my expectations for this team were, I hesitate to say this. My expectations for this team was higher than Collin's at this point. I like looking at that non-conference slate and looking at how Jose had built this team. I was like, oh, he's going for, like, there's like a core 5 schools that USF is playing this year that you would consider to be like true blue bloods. I was like, USF has the pieces put together to win 3 of those 5, potentially even 4 of those 5. Unheard of at USF at this point. It took a little bit out of me, because I again have been following the program for a long time, and as much as I love Michelle, I have also seen Michelle put up absolute stinkers. But she's also been thrusted into action at times where, it's not the best of circumstances. So again, Collin gives me the look here. I think Michelle.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, I can't coach today. I'm going to the hospital. Can you like jump in?
It's never been good circumstances that Michelle has
never been good.
It is
100%.
In fairness, this is also one of those times where, yes, it's great for Jose. It's not good for USF that Jose just up and left, 8 days before the season starts. But to Collin's credit,
that's not ideal.
Yeah. To Collin's credit, Michelle is one of the brightest brains when it comes to women's basketball, especially in the college leagues as well. Like there are many more positives to this USF team still going forward. I saw someone say USF women's basketball reign is over. Like, no. Like you may have very unfortunately woken the beast, even to a greater extent, because as Collin said, this is a great job. This is a top 20 program in the country that just came open. There are Big Ten and SEC programs that might look at their school and be like, I could get more resources at USF. Like,
why couldn't we get Chris? Look, Chris Daly's never leaving UConn, but
Right.
if we're ever going to get Chris Daly, now you could get Chris Daly. Like, I mean,
if you were going to big dick it, you could.
you could. Like, this is a job where you could absolutely like just and we'll see what Rob does with it. But this is a great women's basketball job because they have a fan base that gives a damn. It's a great, as every coach that I ever talked to in a major sport says, great town, great airport, a lot of sunshine, and you get all that. But in most of our major programs, you have the drawbacks. Well, you're in the wrong conference. If you're in football, you've been underfunded until the last couple of years. You've been completely underfunded. Men's basketball, not a lot of tradition, not a lot of. This is the one where you go, oh, well, you get all the natural resources of a great city and a great location, but you also get the fan support. But you also get, the financial resources, and those are things. But by the way, that Jose has fought for, on the record and off the record, for decades, and now the next coach is going to benefit from that as well. This is a school that cares about women's basketball. It's going to care about women's basketball, and the resources aren't going anywhere just because Jose left. And I am fired up. I am very happy for Jose. I'm getting my ass to a Wings game or two this year for sure. But I'm really fired up to see this team and what Michelle's able to put together. They got horses, man. They're favorite to win the league. I still think they're the favorite to win. I wouldn't change that at all. It's just how far can they go?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the women's basketball tournament will not be here next year, but the year after. And I'm fired up for that too. I think that'll be great. I think that'll be a great display of how much this area cares about women's basketball when we're finally able to buy some tickets.
Will style of play change at all?
Nah, they're gonna run. They just because you build your roster around what you want to do.
Will they stop shooting mid-range jumpers?
As a team that probably had the most efficient mid-range shooter of the last 15 years at one point in court, who was the best mid-range 18-foot pull-up jumper. I mean, just pure. Like Chris Paul levels of 18-foot pull-up pure. Yeah, I mean, Michelle's going to tweak things to her system. I have heard great stories from her husband, Jim, who was a head coach in the ABA for, a million years ago. And the stories that he tells about that league and that time of basketball are fantastic. But I got to be honest, I don't know what system he was running back in the in the late 70s in Memphis, ironically. I don't know if, but now with the players that they have, drive the ball to the paint, kick it to the corner, help and recover. The way that they defend might change, if anything. Jose's been, sort of at the vanguard of how women's teams defend. He had them defending much more in an NBA style, help and recover. The way that they recovered was much more NBA like than most women's basketball teams were before anybody else was. They might change. I would be less surprised if they changed defensively more than offensively. That's for sure.
Because this team sorely lacked shooters last year. The three of the girls they brought in are above 35% 3-point shooters. With Katie Davidson was not a ton of volume, but she shot 46%, 46.9%, 30-64. I think she got hurt though last year, if I recall correctly, when we were doing all the previews of the transfer portal. So that I thought was one of their biggest issues last year is they could not shoot the three very well. They had one or two people, depending on if one of them got hot or not, they could shoot it consistently, which is a difficult proposition.
And I went up to that game in the conference tournament, and that certainly became an issue when Tennessee was just chucking it from the parking lot and making everything.
Yeah.
And they were hockey shifting on us. I mean, they were literally full 5-team subs and coming in, and both shifts, as it were, could both just chuck it from anywhere. I mean, that I don't think they're gonna quite go to that, but except for Carla, you're not bringing back a lot in lore, from last year's team that were big contributors, and they did what USF does. Here, let's go down the list and see where they're okay. Transfer from IU Indy, Bulgaria, Montenegro, the Ivory Coast, Finland, Ohio. That's boring. North Carolina, Lake Highland Prep, my rival high school in Orlando, France, Lors from the Congo, another Israeli player in Lee Teichmann, Montenegro, Latvia, Spain, and Carlos from Spain. We knew that. Like, it's USF basketball, man. Grab your passport. This is what we do. Not worried at all. They're fine. The level of talent, you just got to go. I mean, look, are we watching these girls play? No, but can we go based on the recruiting ratings and what other schools were active in their recruitment and who they got and how much we spent for them to get here? That's how we can judge this team, and that's why we judge this team as being ready to compete with anybody. And with that schedule, look, there's a chance on December 31st you have the number one RPI in the country in terms of strength of schedule.
Yeah, Bart Torvik's got them right now at 56 in the country. His projected record is 20-10, 14-4 in conference. So,
who we listen to? Who we listen 4 games to? Get out of here.
You want me to tell you who Bart Torvik has the losses to here?
Okay.
Let's see. Must be 4. It must be 4 in the aggregate.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you one of those is gonna be that Temple team.
Yeah, UTSA and Rice are both mid 50% winning percentage, and Temple's a 62%. East Carolina 61%. Most of the other ones are in the mid to high 80s.
So for fans and friends that have not looked, here's USF schedule: FIU, LIU, the Fighting Out, who's athletic director Elliot Charles, former USF staffer. I think that's probably how that game got done. Those are 2 at home, and then we go to Vegas. We play Fairfield, and then we play UCLA, who has the best player in the country if she's healthy. Then Duke here at the Ling. Then we go to the Bahamas, Minnesota, and then Team TBA out there. New Orleans, and then I don't know if you've heard of this UConn people. They're coming in. We'll sell that one out. Houston Christian. Vandy is always one of the top teams in the country every year. And then this. South? Is that Carolina?
Upstart.
Carolina? That doesn't say upstate. It doesn't say upstate. It says South Carolina. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're pretty good at women's basketball. They did lose the national championship last year, though, to that UConn team that we talked about earlier. Look. So I said number one in strength of schedule on December 31st. I was wrong because the conference schedule starts a little earlier this year, both for the men and the women. I forgot that we're not doing the hard December out, January over. So on my birthday, December 19th, I think there's a real good chance USF is number one in strength of schedule in the country. Wouldn't be, we I think we were 2 a couple years ago after the non-con when we went out to San Diego and all that. But yeah, I don't see how this team's not number one with that schedule.
Yeah, it's a doozy.
So
Jose lobs a grenade and then runs out.
Throw, rock, and run, baby.
Good luck, baby. Good luck, girls. Well, no, it gives you. It's kind of what last year your schedule kind of kept you in the hunt for winning the conference, but your schedule was so good that you had a chance to slip up in conference and still possibly have an at-large opportunity.
As they did, and as they would have been in it. So
they open on Monday night. Also opening on Monday night, men's basketball. So they had the men's basketball team, Coach Brian Hodson, first season. They had an exhibition against St. Leo. 120 points. Won 120-63. I don't really care who you're playing. In college basketball, 120 points regulation seems pretty good.
I think that comes out to like a 3-point per minute average, give or take. Yeah, I think it's right around 3. 120's. I've watched a few of these games. I watched the Arkansas Memphis exhibition game. I've been watching just to see how the refs are calling things this year, which has certainly been a lot of fouls in these. There's always going to be a few more fouls this time of year in these tune-up, warm-up games, but there were a lot of fouls calls in that game. But I don't take too much away from this. Like the Kentucky Arkansas game, basically the starters played the first half, and then the second half, both teams were just like, okay, well, we're gonna empty benches and see what else we got here, and they weren't really trying to win as much as they were trying to learn about their rosters.
Mm-hmm.
So I try not to take away too much from exhibition basketball, especially when I'm not as familiar, with how the teams are approaching what they're trying to do here. So. Not going to take too much of it.
Did either of you get eyes on this game? We got reports from people that were there, and
I don't know if you heard. I was at a football game, so
you may have missed it. CJ Brown finished with 20 and 11. There's not a box score or anything, but they do have some stats on the website here. CJ Brown 20 and 11, 20 points, 11 assists. Is it Enos, Steeg? Did we establish it as Enos?
It is Ennis.
Ennis, okay. I thought we established Enos at one point. But Ennis, all right.
Oh wait, you know what? It is Enos because that's a Ponderosa joke.
Yeah, we talk about his brother Philip.
Yeah.
Wes Enos had 26 points, and Joseph Pignon had 15. They played 13 different guys. Let me see some of the 4 guys in double figures. 28 second half, allowed 28 second half points. Bench scored 37 points, and 13 players played. So, all in all, pretty good. They open with FAMU, I believe, on Monday.
Charlie Ward FAMU, right?
Oh,
is that right? Oh, I missed that.
I think I remember it's someone who you didn't think would be coaching college basketball is coaching college basketball right now.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, they've got interest. They go up to the Mohegan Sun and play George Washington, which will be interesting. At Kennesaw State, obviously that'll be an interesting game. With the calling it the Love Wins Classic.
Yeah, it's Charlie Ward. Look at that.
At Oklahoma State, and then they go to Atlantis. Start with VCU, always a pretty good mid-major team. Pretty good schedule. And then at Alabama, obviously December 17th is one people were talking about with Hudson's Pass there. Pretty good non-conference schedule. This is one I don't know. Georgia College and State University. What is that?
I saw.
Go
I was going to say I saw some. So on ESPN, if you look at the schedule for opening night for college basketball, there is some schools in here. You're like, what in the absolute world is going on here? Hold on. The College of Biblical Studies is taking on Prairie View A&M at 1:00 next Monday. Farmingdale State is playing Stony Brook. Johnson and Wales of North Carolina takes on VMI. Widener, which I know has a law school, but I did not know how a basketball team is playing Drexel. Like, basically, you can play whoever the hell you want in one game a year in college basketball, and everybody's getting that out the way. I will actually be in Vegas next Monday, and I am going to go watch the Florida Gators take on the Arizona Wildcats. And then in the late game, BYU is facing who are they playing?
Good Bansta.
Yeah, and I'm going to go see Debansa at that one as well. So, it's I don't know why I can't pull up here who they're playing that one, but I'm going to that one as well. I'm going to see BYU and Debansa play. I mean, like you can do what the Gators are doing and go play somebody tough, or you can just go play a cupcake. That technically counts on your record. You can count it as a win. You can count one game like this as on your record as a win, even though it's not Division I. But you can't count it for NCAA tournament. It's not like factored by the committee whatsoever.
BYU is playing Villanova.
Villanova, thank you. That's right. The post Kyle Neptune Villanova. USF on the Ken Pom, who will, and Ken Pomeroy will tell you that these are very, very rough numbers. But 104 in Ken Pom on the preseason prediction. Predicted efficiency is 107.5 for the offense and 100.9 for the defense, which ranks them 109th, 104th. And their adjusted tempo is 69th on their projections. Again, you're going to be able to throw a lot of that out within 10 days, probably. 10 days of the season that will get massively uphauled, but that is the projection for right now. They have USF going 18-12 this season, including 2 wins, one against Georgia College and then one against Georgia College and State.
Bart Torvik has USF 63rd right now. I know he does some type of roster rating based on he's got a ton of player specific info and does kind of roster ratings based on that. So he's got USF 63rd, projected 19-9, 12-5 in conference. And
by the way, USF fans, let's get the Yingling a little tougher. 226th in home court advantage. And that's over a long sample as well. 2.7 to be at home, 226 in the country. Not great. Come on, let's make this a slightly tougher place to play if we possibly can. Toughest places to play in the country are West Virginia, TCU, Utah. Those are the tough 3 at 4.5. We're at 2.7.
What's nice is Bart Torvik's got them projected to play 5 Q1 games this year.
That's good.
Yeah, if you win 2 of them.
At Alabama,
too.
At Oklahoma State, George Washington, and VCU on a neutral, then at Memphis. I'm not sure who else is in that Atlantis tournament. Maybe there's a possibility for another one there.
For sure.
So that's good because I know there's been some years where, in 24, wasn't there very few Q1 games?
It was like Memphis and
it was like 1 or 2.
It was Florida State at one point, and then Florida State died off.
They'll get their opportunity this year. It should be at least a fun break. The thing about some of the prior basketball staffs is they were bad, but they also weren't very fun to watch. When you're shooting like 50% from the free throw line, that's not very fun. So at least I don't know how good they'll be. I think they'll be decent, but it seems like they'll be fun to watch regardless. They're going to get
I
up
think
and
they're
down,
going to be more than decent.
shoot a bunch. It seems like could be pretty good, but they'll also be fun, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Whole new era.
04 Detroit Pistons.
So I'm going to let everybody in a little. I'm going to let everybody in a little secret. I talk to basketball people all the time, and they just say this team's going to be good. This team's not going to be good. I also talk to gamblers a lot. Very, very sharp bettors, and I think I've said this on this podcast before. I make more in college basketball than I do in college football. College basketball is my bread and butter. It's my best sport. It's what I do really, really well. I will not bet opening day. I have no opinions. I'm not jumping into the deep end of the pool. Some people will. Some people will really, really dig. And I say that I might find 1 or 2 things where I go, okay, I think a team's short here, a team's long here. There is so much variance and transfer with the transfer portal to just try and project anything in college basketball anymore is almost impossible, especially relative to peers. You know what I mean? Like, who's going to be the best team in this league this year? Well, it'll probably be Memphis and South Florida. Will probably be 2 of the better teams in the league, but like, we don't know. You know what I mean? Until you actually see guys on the court, how they interact, how they play. You're not getting a ton of practice time before you get out there. You know, you can only practice so much, and it's just really, really hard to tell. So, put the best roster that you can together. Hope the pieces fit as best as they can. Coach them up where you can. Believe in teams that are able to coach them up. Teams that have shown an inability, or coaches that have shown an inability to adjust. Bet against them and let it ride. But that's college basketball. How many players from this roster were on USF's roster 2 years ago? Well, that would be 0. That would be 0. So it's just college basketball nowadays.
That's what it is. All right. Any final thoughts on any other sports goings on? Obviously, football.
Volleyball keeps winning, baby. Volleyball keeps winning. Inside track still. That Rice loss is going to sting a little bit, but they are locked for the tournament, which they will be hosting. And then now we just gotta, hope that first week in December that they're able to, I think it's Thanksgiving weekend. I want to say, it's Thanksgiving weekend. They're playing really well right now. It's funny because it's either Maria or a different hero. Every game, you either have Maria playing fantastic or she doesn't play very well because the defense focuses on her and somebody else steps up. And that's just kind of how they've gotten through the season. But it would be really exciting. I am beyond excited to see that team play in a conference tournament on their home field or on their home field court. I've been following this team 20 plus years and I've never seen it. They've never hosted a conference tournament as long as I've been here. I think the last postseason game they hosted was the 1996 NCAA regional where they got waxed by USC. I think that was the last time they hosted anything in a postseason. So I'm super fired up for that. But Jolene's done a great job, and that team, 30th in the RPI, by the way. At large is very much on the table for this team. And after the start that they had, you go, oh boy, that was a rough start against a really tough schedule. Well, that really tough schedule is coming back to help them now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we'll see. There's a chance that they could still, if they had won out and lost the final, that they would still be able to squeak in.
And speaking of a tough slate, soccer, the old pitcheroo, women's soccer is kind of falling off the wagon a little bit. Numerous injuries, inconsistency in scoring, and then back and forth in between goalkeeping is kind of, I don't want to say doomed them, but it's definitely not to the standard that we have known and come to love with USF women's soccer. They'll probably still clinch the conference tournament here within the week, and then who knows what will happen at that point. Conference tournaments are always weird. But more importantly and more expeditiously of what has just occurred in the last 6 minutes, USF women's soccer was men's soccer was vying for a top seed in the conference, potentially if, things fell the right way. They welcomed fellow tied second place Florida Atlantic. They were up 3-2 with 8 minutes to go, and they lost 4-3. FAU scored with 15 seconds, and that sucks big time. Still, you're in the conference tournament. I would put this USF men's soccer team as probable to win the conference tournament. They had their shortcomings, but they can also score like a motherfucker, which is what you always want to see in soccer. Just three unfortunate instances of FAU scoring kind of doomed this team today, or else they win this game 3-1.
You need to learn how to park the bus.
Yeah, I posted it in our Discord. I reposted it on Twitter as well. The last 45 seconds might have been the worst defending I had ever seen out of a soccer program in my life. Just no clearances, no balls going out of bounds, nothing. Just whiff after whiff after whiff, and FAU just controlled possession and just let it happen. So that sucks. But I will put this USF team as probable to probably win at this point. They are very tenacious right now.
So you're saying the USF football team failed late in the game to kill it off when they needed to?
Literally
tough end of game sequences here this week.
I mean, I literally said, "Wow, this sounds familiar." Losing to a top team in the conference to close out a game where you are winning basically the entire time. That sounds familiar.
They failed because they didn't kick it. Interesting. I'm sure that'll go.
Many are saying so.
Like kicking the field goal there.
God, I'm so excited for winter and spring. Those kick in the nuts at least are every they're every 12 hours. So you're like, well, that's like, oh yeah, you can win the next game though, at least. Like baseball and softball. Like you lose on a walk-off, you play the next day. Like soccer, you gotta wait like fucking 5 days until the next game.
So you know what I gotta say, I've been watching, if I'm not at home, and if I'm home, I put it on the big TV. But if I'm out, I've been watching basically every USF volleyball game on the ESPN app on my phone, and then I have the live stats pulled up at the same time. And if you haven't adopted an Olympic sport program that you care about from beloved alma mater, it's just so fun. They're just fun to watch. It's great, and this team, this volleyball team particularly, has been a joy. But it's always been the team that I followed the most closely, and it's been just so much fun to have this be good. It's like we're good at stuff now, man. All of those years we were just bad at everything. And now we got a program that's moving in the right direction. We have an administration that's willing to invest. We have an athletic director who's going to do what it takes and gives a damn about those sports, who gives a damn about soccer, who gives a damn about volleyball. Could not be more excited for the future, man. I think we're looking good here. It's going to be a good year.
Hell yeah.
Well, what's nice is next week we will not only be previewing a football game, but we will be taking a look back at a bunch of different sporting events. We're kind of getting that part of the year where there's a lot of overlap. So next week should be a fun show. Tune in with us next week on Pod By The BAE. Thank you guys for listening. We'll be back. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.